Up until now, your game characters have only held passive data, like names and health numbers. When we wanted to describe those objects, we were creating sentences and having to reference the properties of specific objects after they had been instantiated. To automate those kinds of descriptions and to make your game truly interactive, your objects need the ability to have behaviors, which means adding methods to your class definitions. There are two different ways to add functions to a class, but one of them is almost always the better choice. Let's look at how you can do each one. The first is to define an anonymous method here that's stored with every object instance in a property when the constructor is first called. Let's call this one rest. And we will assign an anonymous function that just takes the magic points that have already been created here and increases them by a value of 10. So every time the wizard rests, he gains 10 magic points back. Let's create a second one that's defined below the constructor. Just like the constructor, we do not need to use the function keyword, it's implied. We just go straight ahead with giving it the name, any parameters that are needed, the name of the spell, and the cost. And then any logic we need to execute when that method is called. In this case, we want to have an if-else statement, and we'll say if the magic points are greater than the cost, we'll decrease magic points by the cost, and then return a string that describes what just happened. We'll say this.name casts spell name magic remaining this.magic points. So notice in a couple of places here, as we've used string interpolation in our template literal, some of these were referring to properties stored within the object, this.name, this.magic points, and in this case, we were using the local variable for this method, the spell name, which does not need a this keyword because it's not the name of a property that's actually stored with the wizard object. This approach gives you a lot of flexibility in how you can display information on objects that have their own properties but are interacting with other pieces of data as well. Now for our other condition, we can just return a different string that says this.name does not have enough magic to cast spell name. So I mentioned that one of these is a better solution than the other. The difference is that when you define a method as a property within the constructor, it's going to store that entire function definition with every single object that's created. On the other hand, if you define it down here below the constructor, it gets stored at the class level. This uses a lot less memory and makes your program much more efficient if you define it below the constructor. Let's move down here. We can see that we've created two new wizards of this class, Merlin and Gandalf, and we have given them their starting magic amounts. Let's have each of them cast a spell, and then we'll log the string that comes back. So I'll go to player 1, call the cast spell method, pass in the spell name Fireball, and the cost of 40 magic points. And then for player 2, we'll cast a different spell, Lightning Bolt, which costs 30. Let's run this. And we see Merlin cast Fireball, magic remaining 20. Gandalf does not have enough magic to cast Lightning Bolt. So now you can see how useful it is to be able to define behaviors and have sentences that can be automated using a lot of the properties of the object or the other data that's passed into the method so that you can call those on any object created from this class, and the code in that method body will execute every single time for consistent behavior. Let's take a look at your practice. You have a Game Hero class. You're going to create a method named Drink Potion. Use your champion here to call your method and print the result. For the second one, we have an enemy orc class that has a method called Gain Rage currently stored in a property in the constructor. Your job is going to be to refactor it as a method defined below the constructor, and then you'll be able to call this here and verify that the result prints as expected. That's all I've got. I will see you in the next one.